Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Oh, wow. Okay, so welcome back. It's Tuesday. We have a guest with us today, but I'm going to start by taking just a couple seconds and for the J6 prisoners, and more importantly, the ones who were murdered. And Ashley Babbitt was murdered in cold blood, and Roseanne Boyle was murdered in cold blood. And as we look at the anniversary, the 5-year anniversary of January 6th, I want to be Captain Obvious for a minute. David Clements is in Washington, D.C. at the march. There's a bunch of people that are at the Capitol steps that are speaking that were previously put in prison. Some of them were put in prison in the Gulag for trespassing, but they were kept there for 7, 8, 9, 10 months, charged with a charge called it's the 1512. It's interfering with a public or with a official proceeding. Even though they didn't go inside, they were outside. They were close to the Capitol. They stepped on the grass, and so the government decided to say, "We get to punish you." Over 1,800 Americans were basically, if you take out the FBI people, it's probably closer to 1,500. They were paraded around by the mainstream media. They created a word called the insurrection that they did about 90 days prior. The American people have had enough. They've seen the fraud that exists in the election systems, and that radical left element that is holding on with dear life. They keep parroting the same thing over and over again because they don't want to be the ones to say, "I knew." So they have to hold on to the lie. They have to continue to parrot. If you're wondering why they're still parroting the lie after we have the whistleblower from the head of security from Venezuela, the head of security from Venezuela came forward and said, "You have congressional leaders on both sides that were on Venezuela's payroll. We've been stealing elections not just in the United States, but all over the country." And I'll have to admit a few things as I talk about January 6th. Where were you on January 6th? See, on January 6th, John Eastman was at the Ellipsis. Now, I've been ridiculed from one end to the other. I've had, you name it, I have had things said about me across the board. But on January 6th, I was at the State Department, meeting with counsel for Pompeo, with a model that I built that still to this day holds up. And I didn't have any audits. I didn't have any information. I only had my brain and the ability to go through all the information related to Dominion voting systems, all the manuals and RFPs, RFQs, all of those things. So I built this model and I went to the State Department and I presented it. And at that point, I knew that they knew. They knew that they had stolen the election and they were all in on it. And Pompeo didn't meet with me. And so over and over again, we've gotten to this place where the American people over the last couple decades, they've stolen enough elections over the last couple decades that we currently are sitting in a place where we have fraudulent representation at every level. And J6 was a culmination of the American people saying we've had enough. But we really didn't realize how rotted out the apparatus was until on January 7th, they did something else very spectacular. They canceled President Trump from every social media platform. Every single one. Now it's canceled months before that. They basically silenced a man and then they attacked him with impunity for 4 years straight. And in the middle of going through all the things that President Trump went through, he announced that he was going to run for office again and win for a third time. But the radical left keeps parroting the same thing. And a lot of the reasons why the radical left gets away with parroting the same thing is because there are so many people that say they're on our side that are nothing but a part of a grifting fraternity. And I want to bring up one of the big disappointments, I think, for me in all of this. See, very early on, I came in and I said, look, this is the information I have on Eric Coomer, who now I was told is out of the country. He's left the country. I'm going to find out if that's true, but he's left the country, and there's some other things that are going to come up over the next couple of days that I think you're going to find rather interesting. I don't believe anyone at Dominion right now is going to survive this. Anyone in leadership, they're all going down, every single one of them. And I believe it's going to be treason and sedition and a bunch of other charges, RICO charges. I think they have enough information collectively that goes all the way back to even the CFIUS investigation in 2006 that, by the way, wouldn't have happened had not Eric Coomer been in Chicago, Illinois with 24 Venezuelans as the chief architect, which, by the way, he hid that as well. He hid the fact that he was the chief architect, except for he couldn't help himself but to talk about it in a New York Times deal. And we were able to find some information that stated, yes, he was the chief architect back in 2005, fresh off of, by the way, a near conviction. Now, I don't want to make this just about Eric Coomer, but I want to make it about our side. So early on, I would have conversations with people. I went to visit with Lynn Wood. And I thought Lynn Wood was a little crazy. I don't think he was a little bit crazy. I thought he was massively crazy, that there's tunnels underneath the ground and President Trump is still the president. And oh my gosh. And I remember sitting there while Lynn Wood said crazy things and then would look at me like, oh, are you a Fed? But then I found out things. I found out like the people that met with Lynn Wood at Tomatli prior to, in November of 2020. And I thought it was curious. People like General Flynn and Sidney Powell and Doug Logan. Doug Logan in November of 2020 was meeting with these people in Tomatli with Lynn Wood. And I still think that, I mean, and there was other people. And so when you get involved in something that you're not accustomed to, the political apparatus, you become very skeptical very quickly, especially when people keep screwing you and you're getting sued and people are attacking you. And so you don't maintain your senses. It's very true that psychopaths and sociopaths are all over Washington, D.C., that it is basically one of the most evil, thirsty, nihilistic environments you could possibly get yourself into. I don't recommend it for anyone. But as you go through this process, you start hearing names. You hear names like Dan Bongino. You hear other names, and I've never been the starstruck guy. I've never been it. I've sat and broke bread with kings, presidents, prime ministers. I've done things all over the country that I had no business doing, but I could solve problems. So that's why I was there. And this was just another problem that I was solving. And I had no business getting involved in this. And frankly, if Eric Coomer would not have been on that call and he wouldn't have gone through what he did and said what he did, said what he said, I would still not be involved in the election part. I would have looked at how do we stop them from cutting off little boys' penises? How do they stop them from grooming children? I would have stuck to the plan of what's going on in our community. Like, we knew that the government was corrupt, but, give up to Caesar what is Caesar's and just make more. I was in that mode. But because you came and you poked the bear, then I got involved. So then I started studying these other people that did podcasts. I mean, look, I used a pseudonym name when I started out doing all the things that we did with Conservative Daily. And I see that our guest is here. I'll be right with you, so just hang tight for a minute. Of Joe Otto. I didn't want to be seen or heard. I just wanted to talk sensibility. And I was partnering up inside of Conservative Daily with what I think is probably one of the smartest young men I've ever met, Max McGuire. He was brilliant. A little eccentric at times, but he was a good friend and he was brilliant. Now, he didn't have a really good firm grip on certain things like Ukraine, But he was a good man. He still is a good man. And so we went after and did things on the journalistic side, but I said, listen, I don't want to get involved in the journalistic side so much. We'll use Joe Otto. Even when we did the podcast before we launched, I did it under Joe Otto because I wanted to be able to do my business and help and produce. And I also wanted to be able to contribute to things that I thought were valuable on conservative values, mostly tied to not killing babies and gun rights and other things like that. Now, so I looked at guys like Dan Bongino and guys that stepped out that ran for office, and I gave them money, and I did a bunch of stuff to help them. And then the last 5 years has been basically getting a PhD in bullshit. That's in essence what it is. You know, where these people get together, you have the Julie Kellys and the Dan Bonginos and the Steve Bannons and all of these people who say that they're really smart, and they are diabolically, because they stand together and they create this Mean Girls Club, and then they start attacking people and making accusations and doing things like what they did to Kyle Seraphin. I know Kyle Seraphin really well. I broke bread with him and his family. I sat at the same dinner table with him in a very meager environment, and guess what? He's one of the most genuine people you'll meet. Now, is he an a-hole sometimes? The answer is yes. He absolutely is, 100%. He has no time for nonsense. And Dan Bongino had him on after saying, man, this has got to be the guy. But someone upstairs, someone downstream from Dan Bongino said, nah, we can't have Kyle Seraphin speaking. And so then Dan Bongino turned on Kyle Seraphin, and Julie Kelly turned on Kyle Seraphin and said that he's still a Fed and he's Chris Wray's Fed. And I just saw the new deal that, you know, you got John Solomon, who is one of those people that's just not a good person, that said the elections were free and fair, that worked for Real American News. I mean, if I told you how deep the grift is and how deep the well of Mean Girls is in this environment that align with the radical left, I'd be here for days. But Dan Bongino is one that I gave to his campaign, actually. I gave to a PAC that was doing some stuff for one of his campaigns when he ran for office in, I think it was 2015 or 2016. I was committed. I love that guy. I thought for sure he keeps himself healthy. He's a good dude. He fights like he's a warrior. That's the guy I want fighting for me. I want him to be in that fight. I don't know what's wrong with my eye. Sorry, guys. But then he attacked Kyle Seraphin. And I'm anything but I'm loyal. I didn't give up the Antifa kid. Why? I didn't give up the Antifa kid not because I couldn't give up a kid that didn't mean a lot to me. It was because I gave him my word. And I took a lot of flack and paid over $150,000 in fines because they wanted to take from me what wasn't theirs. Newsperson privilege, they want to take it from me so they could hurt this young man. And I just said, I won't do it. I won't sell my soul to the devil. And I certainly won't do it to save myself. Why would I do that? That's silly. No, it's not silly. It's failing the test before you. That's what it is. But Dan Bongino put something out today. And then, what did he do? He blocked me. Now I've gone after Julie Kelly. She blocked me like 6 months ago, 9 months ago. I heard the old stories. Mike Lindell used to get in his plane and say, Joe, what did you do to Steve Bannon? I was like, I didn't do anything to him. Why does he always call me and say, get rid of Oltmann, get rid of Oltmann, get rid of Oltmann? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I've had 3 conversations with the guy. 2 on air. 1 at the symposium. But I blew a hole in the whole thing with Dennis Montgomery, and all of a sudden, Bannon didn't like me, and I didn't care. I didn't care about his daughter either. I didn't care about any of them. I thought they were foolish. And then I found out that he was best friends and basically sleeping nut to butt with Epstein and teaching him how to be likable. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that checks. It fully checks. But for 5 years, I've gone through this. And for 5 years, I wouldn't invite any of these people to sit at my table. Not one of them would they be able to sit at my table. So Dan Bongino puts this up. Let's put up this. He blocked me, right? And then he puts this up. And so good old Dan, let me read to you, Dan. Let me read Dan's own words. And I don't give a shit that you blocked me. I could care less. It says 3 million views on the post below this one. Here's why. Support for the Trump administration and the working world is strong. And people are tired of the endless bullshit from the black pillar, chicken little grifters. Watch their tactics, and once you see them, you'll never unsee them. They use a couple of different tactics to bullshit you. First, they overload you with information, but they underwhelm you with the evidence. Here's the example of what I mean. They'll try to convince you that John Smith robbed a bank. So they data download on you and lose you in the chaos. They tell you things that might be true, that aren't evidence of anything. They'll tell you John wasn't at the bank that day, that John knew someone who worked there, that John was arrested 10 years ago for a misdemeanor. But they won't tell you that the fingerprints, video, and DNA of the thief matched someone else. Solid investigators sift through chaotic information and mine the evidence gems. Charlatans and morons do the opposite. Second, black pillars rarely take on the president directly. They know that they'll get destroyed by the boss and wind up in the political graveyard of egomaniacs who thought they could take the president on with this bullshit. As a proxy fight, they try to pick off his allies, knowing many of them are limited in the ways they can fight back. Well, I'm back now, and I'm putting this bullshit to a stop. Everyone inside the administration I cross paths with is busting their asses to move the needle on real change. You can do things fast or you can do things correctly. You can rarely do both in government. Even in those constraints, the administration's accomplishments are breathtaking. I want to be clear at this point. Intra-party movement policy disagreements are healthy and natural, but the endless permissive pessimism, meaning to strategically attack a movement from inside, is not about policy, it's political cannibalism. And many of these grifters are hiding their real agendas from you. And that leads me to my next point. Third, the black pillars are infamous for telling you an administration policy or action is going to lead to the end of the world before the policy is even given time to demonstrate results. You're seeing it now with regards to Venezuela. Will it work out? Maybe. Will it all see? Well, we will all see, but maybe give it a minute before you attack from inside the tent while pretending you're an ally. Black pillars and grifters asked for this fight, not us. I'm absolutely down to fight, absolutely down. Now let's read this one below it, because this one's actually interesting. And I'm sorry, sir, just hang tight with me for a minute. This is actually a good point that I want to make. Let me add from this. From the jump, there's so there's no confusion. I started in the movement as a candidate during the Tea Party movement, and I began my political commentary career certainly afterwards. I helped build this movement, and I sure as hell am not going to let it get hijacked by a group of black pillars, life losers, grifters, and bums. Okay, so let me just address that really quick. Stop it for a minute. Let me address that for quick. I didn't want your bullshit. I didn't want to do a podcast. I didn't want to be in this fight. I wanted you to fix the fucking problem that was sitting right in front of you. And when you tell me that things take time, but President Trump can sign a piece of paper and solve problems lickety split, and there's no movement at all until President Trump actually goes out there and says, there's no movement, don't tell me you're doing the work that you should be doing. And I have a company, and I was happy doing the work that I did before you assholes screwed it up. So I got involved in this fight because you guys couldn't. Because you said that you had courage. And then when you stepped in the fight, you didn't deliver. I'm not a life loser. I'm a life winner. And I know a lot of people who are life winners that have spent their life giving back and sacrificing for people that they don't even know. And so before you say all this stuff, Dan, and you know what? If you wouldn't have blocked me right afterwards, I wouldn't be taking this personally. But certainly you think that somewhere along the line, I'm one of the guys that has been basically shitting on the administration, which is the complete opposite truth. I let things play out. I listened to people who told me about Susie Wiles, and I was like, I think she's doing a great job. They said, oh, she's terrible. I'm like, all right, I'm going to step out of that deal. Then I watch and see what she does, and I'm like, it's great. But when it gets to the place where it's about to break, and you walk it all the way to the breakage point, and then you arrest a black kid that you know is not the pipe bomber, and you do so much stupid shit, and then you get up and you parrot the same thing over and over again, and then you have the Mean Girls Club do the same thing. Well, while Kardashian Patel sues Kyle Seraphin for saying that his girlfriend's a honeypot. Look, you know what? How many times I've been called stuff? I didn't run out there and say, oh, let me just sue everyone because they said I'm a Fed. And I've never worked for the Feds. Not for any period of time. I've worked for the American people, but I've never worked for the Feds. Never gotten paid a dollar, never been an informant, never done any of that, ever, not once. But I've been called everything in the book, including now a life loser. That's what go ahead, put it back up. Let's finish it. We're a movement guided by truth. No, you're not. You're not. You're not guided by truth. Because if you were guided by truth, you wouldn't be upset when somebody brings you something that is completely the opposite of what you're talking about. You would listen to reason. You wouldn't have called and tried to get Steve Baker fired, which tell me it's a rumor. Tell me it's a rumor. It went all the way through the organization. Someone at the lowest level at the Blaze said, yeah, they tried to get Steve fired for talking about the pipe bomber. That's not chasing the truth. And I believe that you left. I believe you left that position because you're actually an honorable guy. And you didn't want to do it anymore. But then you got out and you put this out. Shame on you. Shame on you. And shame on you for taking actual sacrifice. People that put their life on the line. Watch their 8-month pregnant wife be house homeless. Have to move in with their families because of the sacrifice of becoming a whistleblower. Only to have the government betray them. While you say, hey, by the way, just wait a little bit. We'll get right to you. But you made sure the people that did the harm to the J6ers and everyone else, they got promoted. Let's just finish this real quick, then we'll bring our guest on. Whew. We are a movement guided by truth. The essence of conservative ideology is the preservation of eternal truths. I agree with that. We are not the latest thing group. We're not political cannibals. I've watched quietly from the inside while doing the job I was hired to do. But I'm back now. It's time to restore balance in the force. As we get ready to make some announcements about the future of the show, I also want to warn the haters and the zeros. We've been at this a long time. We live for this stuff. This isn't our first, second, or 10th rodeo. I've seen a lot of dipshits come and go. We revel in making you angry enough to show your asses. It's glorious. We've got midterms coming up and there's no time for bullshit. The administration is cooking and real change simmers. I believe that. I now believe that. Anytime you can reach into a country and grab the leader of that country out and take out the security force as if you're just sitting down to have spaghetti dinner, yeah, I believe that change is coming, and I believe now I can see something. But if you think the last 4 years has shown us anything other than strife and degradation and the fact that we're still going through lawsuits and we still have sacrificed more than you ever have, you didn't get to see your wife? Well, let me just explain something to you. I have to sleep with a gun next to my bed and one on my pillow. You want to know why? Because they threatened to kill my family. I promise you that you didn't have to deal with that. And if you did, you had an entourage of FBI agents that surrounded you. If you're spending your entire day bitching and whining with 3/4 of the term still to go, then please find the exits. There's time for it. There's no time for it. It's not infighting when you excise a cancer killing the host. It's outfighting because you're not part of any movement I'm familiar with. Looking forward to big things ahead. Can't wait to tell you about it. Okay, Dan, I put this up and I said this, and I'm not going to talk about it again other than to say this. You think that the people that are out there telling you who Joe is or who Kyle is, you think they're your friends. You think that you've been doing this way back to the Tea Party movement. You ran for office 3 times, you lost all 3 times. Now, the second time you lost by a couple more points of margin. I believe that election was stolen from you. But you won't even listen to that. And none of the FBI has done anything other than CYA itself. And the institutional rot that you have at the FBI, maybe you're sifting through it. But you're sifting through it in a way that is not transparent. And for you to sit here and say that low lifes and losers and zeros, I'm none of those things. And I have fought tooth and nail, only to be betrayed by everyone, including you and Kardashian Patel and a bunch of other people. Yeah, you don't have time for me because you got your little group together. So I guess I won't be invited for dinner. But I never wanted to sit at the table with you to begin with. I'd rather sit at the table with someone who's willing to speak truth and other people that are willing to take the truth on the chin and be like, all right, I can respect your opinion, even if you don't agree with it. That's all I got. Let's bring our guest on. How you doing?
Good, Joe. How are you? It's good to meet you.
It's good to meet you. Sorry, I had today was a J6 number 1, and number 2, I don't have a lot of patience for stupid, as you can tell. But have everybody just tell everyone a little bit about yourself. I've read through all about you, but I want them to hear about you.
Sure. I was a third-generation Hollywood prop master and armor. Worked on some pretty big action films during the aughts and the teens. And kind of watched Hollywood lose its mind in real times and watched that affect friends and family in a pretty significant way. And, it's all tied into a lot of what you're talking about, the political situation we find ourselves in, and really, what has been going on behind the scenes in the world that is only now becoming visible or more visible. So it's been an interesting journey that way.
Well, what is it actually? Tell me a little bit about what did Hollywood start out that way? How long have you been in Hollywood?
So I've been in Hollywood for 25 years. My dad was a prop master back in the 80s. He was prop master on Moonlighting and a bunch of TV shows of that era. Grandpa ran construction at Universal in the 60s and 70s. So my family goes back in Hollywood till the 40s. And, Hollywood has always been a lot of things. And let me preface this by saying was by no means at the top of that pyramid. I'm a below the line crew guy, blue collar union person. So this is kind of the view from the bottom. It's definitely not the view from the top. But it changed tremendously. I started working in the business when I was 18. And I was there for really the blow off top of Hollywood. I did mostly big action movies and just kind of watched the business change from what I would call legitimate storytelling to really it turned into something else. Like so many of the institutions in our country, there's what the institution was supposed to be doing and what it nominally did, and then there's what it was actually doing and what it was actually up to. And I don't know if we'll ever know what it was actually up to, but Hollywood production is down 60 some odd %. And the ecosystem of Hollywood is disintegrating in real time, which is something I never thought I would see. All the companies that supported filming and production and really all of the blue collar, Hollywood is mostly blue collar. When you look at the writers and the actors and the directors, yeah, there's a dozen or maybe 24 of them, but there's hundreds of crew members.
All right, so let's talk about ideology shifts. Was there an ideological shift in your peers, or was this something that was pumped down from the top?
It was definitely from the top. Hollywood crews have always been fairly conservative. Maybe not the costume department, maybe not certain departments, but all of your Teamsters, all of your electricians, your grips, certainly all of your armorers are fairly conservative guys. When you're making a big action movie, it is a serious, dangerous environment. And I would.
So you need courageous people, so they better be conservative.
Yeah. Or just from a psychological perspective, you have to be. Hollywood is this very interesting combination where you have to have fairly high trait conscientiousness, which pushes you strongly conservative from a psychological point of view. But you also to be an artist, you need to have a degree of trait openness. And that's a rare psychological combination. And so to be a good, I'll speak for my own department, my own craft, to be a good property master or a good armor, you have to be both of those things at the same time. And that's an interesting little psychological niche, and we all always joke, did you find the circus or did the circus find you? And given the hours that are worked on film sets and things like that, it's kind of a selection process. So by the time you have a high level Hollywood crew, all of those peoples have, survived multiple 16 to 24 hour days, awful weather, very stressful conditions, etc. And so it's a really interesting collection of people, and that's one of the things that I find to be the most sad about Hollywood's demise was that collection of talent and that collection of people who could really pull off impossible stuff.
Are you doing it now? What are you doing now? What are you doing now?
Right now, nothing. Hollywood really has blown up in the last year or two. So I'm in a period of transition trying to figure out what I'm going to do next.
So what does that mean? You're going to do, the whole idea of what the mainstream media or the media market, it's become so diluted that movies are being made in people's basement.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't know what that's going to look like. People are still want to hear good stories. How are they going to want those stories presented? And in what formats, we don't know. I think that, just like in the political sphere, we really don't know what's going on and what the world's going to look like in 5 years. I think that is true of my business as well. We really don't know. And I think anyone who thinks they do is probably going to be wrong. It's going to be surprising, whatever it is.
Yeah. So let's talk about even the action films and kind of the DEI mandates and some of the things you had to do. You had to deal with a bunch of that stuff inside of, even being on the union. Most unions still have this thing happening with DEI.
So there has been some things that have changed very recently. Like if you want your movie to be considered for an Academy Award, there are certain quotas that have to be met. Pardon me. That was never my world. My world was always kind of high-end action movies. And that was still, let's just say, it was a little bubble of competence because of how dangerous it could be, because of the budgets involved. But certainly, and Hollywood is such a big place. There are people who work on the same soap opera for their entire career. And then there are people who do nothing but commercials. There are people who will work on a TV show and then go do some commercials. And believe it or not, none of those different kind of silos talk to each other. So commercial people rarely do TV. TV people rarely do movies. So there could be these type of DEI things. There can be these ideological pushes that, depending on which of those silos you worked in, you would never see. I never saw them directly, but I think that was more a function of the type of shows that I did. If you were working on a network TV show, I think you were exposed to a lot more of that.
All right, so let's examine something during COVID and post-COVID. Was it different?
Oh,
What happened in COVID?
COVID is when everybody collectively lost their mind at the exact same moment. And
that's what they call mass psychosis, by the way.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Hollywood in particular lost its mind. And the thing, and part of it is understandable, right? If you kind of remember, Hollywood is the propaganda department for, society at large, right? For the people who were previously in power. And so I think that what happened was the propaganda department forgot that it was the propaganda department and started believing its own propaganda. I think that really that's kind of psychologically what happened. And so Hollywood lost its mind during COVID.
Do you feel like it was like a sleeper cell? Or do you feel like
no.
Because it seemed to happen almost as if somebody had flipped a switch, and that I've seen this happen before, by the way. I've actually been a part of something that was kind of this experiment that we did, and we did it for fun. Like there was like 4 of us that got together and we convinced 10 of the guys to do something really stupid. And we were like, and we looked at each other like, what are you talking about? You don't want to do it. We didn't do it with all 10 of them. We only did it with 1 or 2 at a time. And then we went with 1 or 2 at a time. And so by the time we were done, there was 14 of us, and the only people that did the stupid something were the 10. The other 4 of us sat back and was like, what are y'all doing? They're like, what are you talking about? You told us to. And I was like, no. Do you think it was something like that? Do you think it was?
Society-wide, sure, right? I mean, I'll never forget the day that, Major League Sports just shut down, and what did that mean, right? These people have a lot of money on the line. They're not stupid. This is kind of an odd aside for me and COVID personally. I got my degree in molecular biology. So, and I was in college during 9/11.
So you know viruses.
So I know viruses, and we did a little bit of bioterrorism work. Strangely enough, I was part of a little group that brainstormed how to miniaturize PCR machines. And interestingly enough, 20 years later, those were all on film sets. So if you were part of the professional managerial class and you basically bought into the idea that experts have our best interests at hearts, if you bought into, basically the story of the post-World War II consensus, And then all of a sudden, all of the government experts tell you that there's this horrible virus and you're in danger and grandma's going to die. I think that we were just primed for the reaction that we had, like, as society wise. Obviously there were people who didn't believe it from second one. They turned out probably to be more right than wrong. And so, yeah, it's you know what? So I'll tell you a little personal story. Back when we were doing some of that bioterrorism brainstorming, there was this, I think it was 60 Minutes, did a expose on what would happen if someone dumped weaponized anthrax in the New York City subway. And it was like an hour-long presentation. What would happen, how the trains would atomize and pump the spores all over the subway system. And, they were talking like death counts 50, 60,000 at the time. And so and remember, I'm like in my early 20s when this expose comes out. So I think about my peers who, I went off and joined the circus. Some of my peers went on to become doctors, public health officials, etc. They had been, even the experts had been primed their entire life about how, it's a matter of if, or it's a matter of when, not a matter of if, etc.
What's the antidote, Donnie, for anthrax?
Doxycycline.
Doxycycline.
Yeah.
Would you have had 50 to 60,000 people die?
If you didn't have it, no. But remember, this is this is the 9/11 era, right before I believe we had the big national stockpile.
Yeah, but even if you didn't have the stockpile, you could use amoxicillin until you got doxycycline.
Oh,
because amoxicillin
right.
would keep off, right? So again, I'm a walking encyclopedia of worthless information. I did not go get a degree in molecular biology, but I like to read worthless information that I probably will never use.
But
I'm like a walking grok.
But imagine that you are a young person striving for a position in a professional managerial class, and now that threat and how important your potential is, etc. I think that the whole professional managerial class is just one great big self-licking lollipop. They all convinced each other that everything that everyone was doing was so important, when it turns out it was just a make work jobs program for college graduates, which I think is how you kind of need to, how you could easily interpret the last 40 years of corporate hiring and government hiring in America, which is that we kept producing college graduates, and so we kept having to find places for them to go. And we created an entire class of people who believed that they were very well educated, that what they were doing was very, very important. And then COVID came along, and it was like,
let me show you how smart
experts are finally in charge. We saw how that went. Didn't go very well.
Well, let's count the ways. How many people died? They won't even talk about it anymore. They won't even, Donnie. They won't talk about it anymore.
Well, by who?
Talk about it.
With died of COVID or with COVID? Was it the virus? Was it the vaccine?
Got in a car accident, flipped the car, ended up having COVID in their body. Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah. We'll never have good stats. I mean, I know that there are people. Yeah, I know that there are people who are doing interesting backward math, looking at tracks of excess death, and it's not good. I mean, it's one of the greatest crimes. To say nothing of the wealth transfer that happened, to say nothing of, what the political machinations that went around at that time. I mean, it really was I think our society was already pretty darn rotten. I think it got rotten in the 90s, in the aughts, and the teens. But COVID showed the rot in a way that I think a lot of people really weren't expecting.
So I've seen this play out before. Right. Again, walking encyclopedia, worthless information, 2022, March 2022, I was the first one to come out and say, I will stand on the side of Russia every day, twice on Sunday. Right. I think Ukraine's bad. You could have a different opinion. I just have too much information. I spent 6.5 years going to different countries all over the world and dealing with people that frankly made decisions. And I watched just how rotted the CIA is and how rotted certain aspects of different countries are. Right. And again, I shouldn't have had access to some of this information. Granted, I shouldn't. Nobody should have given me this information. They shouldn't have showed me the information. I shouldn't have had a seat at many of these tables, right? Including one of the biggest war criminals in the world at the time, President al-Bashir, which I sat and had coffee with him inside of his palace while he was a war criminal and wanted by the Hague, right? So I say that because I've seen this. I've seen this, what they did in 2020, and I've seen what would have to be possible for that to happen. In order for a country to get to the place where we're rotted out the way we are, you can have no self-correction. In other words, there's got to be no way that you can go backwards. President Trump in 2016 went backwards, but the society around him went forwards with this radicalness. We saw the radical happen in Colorado, California, Washington, Oregon, right? They gained another 15 to 20% of the seats. So you couldn't get to where we are right now because a society will self-correct if the apparatuses of government are not so densely populated with really bad people. That's how you get to a good versus evil, right? And so the elections are the only thing that could do that, because but the elections are stolen. So if you don't have elections, you don't have free and fair elections. By the way, I've seen this. I've literally seen what I'm telling you in other countries, right? If you don't have access to elections and they tell you that, hey, listen, this person won, and oh, by the way, if you speak up about it, we're going to put our foot in your face, which is what they did here in America, then you get to where we are right now, where evil basically, or ridiculousness, gets to overwrite just basic principles of ethics and moral values. Would you agree?
Couldn't agree more. I think it's interesting to take everything you just said and frame it in terms of like an immune response, right? Yeah. Where a healthy society is constantly getting insulted by various things and problems, etc. But the immune system, if it's doing its job, identifies the threat, isolates it, and there's lots of, different ways that the immune system handles, invasion in that sense. It was almost like our society was an AIDS patient when COVID happened, and we had no immune system. And so all of a sudden, how come you're getting toxoplasmosis? How come you're getting these strange diseases that shouldn't affect you? And I think that,
losing your taste and smell, Donnie.
Right.
Losing your taste and smell. I mean, just so you know, a virus should not have that particular effect, typically. Like, that's not a normal, typical, if you go back in time over 100 years, it's not normal.
Right. There was nothing normal about it, right? And we still haven't had, look, you and I are obviously mostly on the same page on this topic. It's amazing that half of the country still firmly believes the mainstream media message as it was presented at the time. It's, in spite of everything that happened subsequently.
And this is where I actually don't believe it's a vast majority of the country. So let me just tell you why. Have you heard of bots before?
I've heard of what before?
Bots.
Bots. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have social media, and then you'll have.
Sure.
So the company that we exposed a couple years ago was called Demcast, and Demcast is basically 1 million accounts, and one person could run 200,000. And they basically go out and create variants, and then they put that variant out there, and then these bots go out there and they act like they're commenting on things in order to create elicit a response. So you could be having a conversation with a bot and never know it. Right? In a society that is going one direction or another direction, if it truly is going that direction, you wouldn't need bots. Bots wouldn't exist. You wouldn't need to create or sway public opinion by bots. So I believe that actually a smaller group of people in our society that are usually the loudest, right? Those are the ones that represent the bots. They represent this kind of craziness. And then a vast majority over here, you have a bunch of people that are quiet in the middle. They're like 50%, like looking around like, what the hell's going on? Y'all are crazy and y'all are crazy. They just want to live life. They just give me a little peace. Just give me peace, please, right? And then you have the people over here that are like, man, and these could be Democrats and Republicans mixed over here. They're like, this is bullshit. Nothing brought people together more than a vaccine, right? Left and right. So yeah. I think that we have to be really careful when we give credit to a group of people, when mathematically speaking, it just is not, it's not representative. If you go to ask 20 people on the street, I recommend you doing this, 18 of them, you'll be like, oh, you guys are normal. And then you go do it again, and 18 people will be normal. And 2 people will be ridiculously retarded on either side. Right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that the left, by controlling propaganda outlets, made themselves seem much more mainstream, much more numerous, and much more powerful than they were. To their credit, though, they set up one heck of a patronage system where they could basically keep all of their college graduates employed, and they would go from NGOs to government to law firms to wherever. And the right didn't do as good of a job in that respect. It's that's the problem with conscientious individualists, is that it's one of our great failings. I think it's the thing that that the other side takes advantage of, is that they of course they would use your virtues against you. What else would they do?
Let me ask you something else about Hollywood.
Sure.
When was the point where you lifted your head up and you're like, you had to get to a moment. You got to a moment where you're like, uh-oh, this is like propaganda. Like, this is supposed to be an action film, and that dude's a woman or man. That woman, what is going on here? Right? Did you have that moment? Did you have a moment where you were like, hey, Johnny, do you see this? It can't be just me.
I was really lucky that I worked on some pretty good movies with some powerful directors who, like, you don't tell Clint Eastwood what the hell to do. You really don't. And so worked for him twice, worked for Michael Bay, worked for some other people, worked for David Ayer twice. The thing that I saw that was the most interesting were directors who had a really strong, good vision, and watching the studio destroy that vision. I saw that happen a couple of times where I thought we made a really good, gritty, violent action movie. And then, with not very much editing, it goes from a 10 to like a 7 on the grittiness scale. And I watched that happen several times. And you have to kind of wonder, it's like, okay, is that just the suits saying that, no, it's too gritty and we want a more mass market movie? Or is that someone with a political agenda saying, no, you showed too much of the truth of the world and we're not going to do that? That's kind of an interesting question that I ponder. I worked on a lot of movies that had DoD approval, or we had a DoD rep with us. And when you have a movie like that, the DoD gets a say. And it's in the strangest areas. It's like, no, all of these U.S. Marines are going to be wearing helmets. It was really important to the Marines on Battle Los Angeles that everyone wore a helmet, because they were sick to death of Hollywood making movies where all the soldiers are running around without helmets. And, those are the kind of notes that I got at my level. Was the DoD giving other notes up at the producer-writer level? They may have. I don't know. I never saw that. It wasn't my world.
What films did you work on?
So my first movie was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then 3:10 to Yuma, Flags of Our Fathers.
John Wick.
John Wick 3. Yep, did John Wick 3. Fast and the Furious 8, Transformers 3, G.I. Joe 2, Magnificent 7. A little bit of TV sprinkled in there, and a bunch of other stuff that no one's ever seen or heard of.
Did it make it to the film? Did the films make it out, or just stuff you did?
I did an Angelina Jolie movie called First They Killed My Father, which was about the Cambodian genocide that I think 5 people saw. And, that was
was it a good film or no? Was it?
It should have been. It's horribly, horribly, horribly depressing. You know, a quarter of the country dies, and it's about this 9-year-old girl who gets basically pulled into the Khmer Rouge and turned into a child soldier. And it's a good story, but Angie shot it from the girl's point of view, which made it
too gritty,
too artsy for my taste. I think it could have been a different and better movie, but it's not my movie, right? It's like, I've never directed no one ever gave me $50 million to make a movie, so who knows if I could do better.
$10 million a ticket.
Exactly. When I went to go see it, and it was me and two older, I'm going to guess, Cambodian people, like sitting near the front row. And it was kind of tense because you could tell it, they were either involved or, knew someone who was. So, it meant something to the people who it meant something to. But, most Americans don't know anything about Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge and that whole story. It's
most Americans don't know anything about violence. They know nothing about war. I mean, even the most veterans. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. There's the war contingent that worked in a battle zone, and a vast majority did not.
Sure. Yeah. Tooth to tail ratio for the U.S. military is what, like 100-1 right now?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of people that have never, don't even understand the implications of a war. Watching a kid blow himself up, or watching people, slash themselves, or butcher themselves with slashers that happened in Kenya in 2008. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that has happened that we can't fathom. We say that we want to support Ukraine. I get to this whole thing. You see the Slava Ukraine, all this other stuff, and millions of people died. Right? Over 25 million Ukrainians were displaced. It cost real lives, and we don't think about that, right? We don't think about the consequences of who somebody has to die in order for war to go on. Someone has to die. So yeah, I agree with it fully.
Yeah, we've outsourced all of the dirty bits of life, right? And the only place we have police and fire and soldiers, morticians. We've professionalized a big part of the human experience. And, we've been very rich for a very long time. And when you have money, you get to live in a bit of a fantasy land. And it goes back to a point you made earlier, kind of about the feedback, right? It's, if you don't have feedback, how are you supposed to know where you are and know where you're going? And I think, just society-wide. And look, Hollywood certainly played a major part in sterilizing, sanitizing violence, showing it, but in a disconnected way. And then, there's an interesting argument there. Is that small artificial inoculation of simulated violence? You can make the same argument about video games. Yeah. Is that better than nothing? Or is it worse because now you think that's the real thing? And of course, this is all happening on a subconscious level. I'm not saying anyone's making this decision consciously.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just use this example for what you just said. I remember during COVID, there was a protest, and the Antifa guys came out of nowhere, and they came in, and my job was just to protect people. Like I was like, okay. So they came in and started throwing stuff around. So I hit this guy. I mean, I hit him really hard, and he basically hit the ground. His face hit the ground, and he was out cold. And I walked over and I woke him up. I mean, all this stuff's happening around me, and you're like, Joe, you're kind of a violent guy. I'm actually not a violent guy at all. I was there to protect people, and these people were being violent. So, but I hit the guy, and then I got him to his feet, and you could see in his eyes the terrified, like he was terrified. Here's a guy that ran over, wanted to throw things around, but didn't think that somebody was going to knock his lights out. I did. I walk him over the thing, and I was like, listen, you have a concussion. If you stay here, you could die. You get hit again like this could be really bad for you. I think you should leave. And I looked at his buddy, and I was like, he needs to leave. You go get him some help. And so this other Antifa kid watched this happen. This other Antifa guy watched me do this, and so the guy leaves, right? And I go back to throwing people around, trying to save whatever was left of the melee while the police were watching. So I think that there's a lot of people that get involved in things that have no understanding of what violence truly is. They have no understanding of it. And I think that the media and I think video games desensitize people to what really happens. And when something really bad happens, now they can't understand it because that's not the way it happened in the video game.
Yeah, there wasn't that emotional. Everyone's, to quote Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And the problem I think with simulated violence is that it doesn't have the hormonal or the neurological consequences of actually being there and actually experiencing it. And so you can read about it all you want. You can see it simulated as many times as you want. Your body is going to react, chemically and neurologically, how it's going to react. And if you've never experienced that, I'm sure it comes as quite a shock.
I can tell you right now, it's not. I mean, it's a very big shock. Even if you're not even in it, you're right next to it.
Oh, sure.
And you see it. There's something happens to you, right? It changes you.
Yeah.
So,
there's a great book. It's called the Face of Battle by Keegan, and he talks about how in let's just say ancient Greece, the killing of animals with your own two hands was something that you did daily or weekly just to eat, right? So your hands were bloody on a fairly regular basis. And Alexander the Great, in his priestly duties, would have been doing animal sacrifices on a daily basis. And that has to change you, right? I mean, especially if you're doing it from a very, very young age. And, again, just kind of the sterility of the modern environment where, hey, if you want a chicken, chicken comes from the grocery store, right? It's wrapped in plastic. The number of people, living today who have had to kill something in order to eat is very, very small. And I think that has, it's the unspoken, unrecognized parts of our society that I think that are responsible for some of what we're seeing. And just the fact that, you can eat hundreds of pounds of chickens in your life and never have killed a chicken. I think that has a pretty profound effect that's nearly invisible until it gets pointed out. How would our society be different if every single person has killed an animal every week for their entire life? You would have probably had a different experience in the story you just told.
Yeah, I mean, look, you learn to know what limits are, and then the psychopaths and the sociopaths don't have limits, and our society builds sociopathy and psychopathy by creating things that aren't true. When your mind, and by the way, this is just another book I read. If you get to a place, it's by Peterson, by the way. What's that guy's name? Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. Yeah. When your mind knows that something is not true, but you're convinced that it's true, then the conflict in your mind will actually create a position in your mind where you're at constant conflict, right? Even though you've already made the decision it's true, even though you know it's not true. Right? Your body's telling you it's not true, your mind's telling you it's not true, but you're trying to convince yourself that it's true. And then you find yourself in this place of absolute conflict.
Yeah, it's you could make the interesting argument that the entire post-World War II structure was designed to facilitate some type of delta between the way the world is and the way that people wanted us to think it was.
Well, and a lot of that is true to this day. I mean, we face that a little bit today with. Sorry, I went to get blood today, and the thing they had on me was bad. You could make the argument that we, because of the fact you have X, like go get your news on X or go get your news from Fox or CNN. What's the difference?
I think it depends on how well you curate your X feed.
Yeah. Is it for you or is it people you follow? Because if you go to either one of those, you might end up by bipolar disorder if you get the wrong one.
Yeah, it's it's almost an exercise in self-programming. right? And so do you have the self-discipline to look at X feeds that you find uncomfortable? Even if you happen to, at the end of the day, read them and go, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but I still think you're wrong. The number of people who are willing to do that I think is relatively small. One of my favorite lines, the brain is not a rational organ. The brain is a rationalizing organ. And so we all want to hear opinions that we already agree with. When you go to the range, you want to do drills that make you feel good about yourself. No one wants to go do weak hand only shooting at the range because we all suck at it. And when it's over, you look at your target and you feel bad about yourself. That's why no one does it. So it's, I think a little bit of that is a discipline issue.
I do a lot of that. I do a lot. Matter of fact, I keep my gun in a position where it's weekend. I have to weekend draw.
Okay.
So that, and the logic behind that for me is I'm really good with my hands. Like, what if I get a hold of you, I'll take you down, throw you on your neck. And so I want to be able to pick that first, not pick the weapon first.
Okay.
But if I pick the weapon up, I can do just as much damage to you as I can with my primary hand. So, sorry, it's a little.
No, look, and those are not. I don't think so. It's one of my favorite topics. It's.
Well, so I own gun stores and ranges.
Okay.
2 stores, 5 ranges. So.
Cool. Good for you.
It's not as expensive for me as it is for most people.
Oh no, I have to go to the office again. Don't throw me in the briar patch.
All right. So what's next for you? What are you going to do next? And how do you take the experiences you have through to that next place? And is Hollywood dead? Is it dead? There's a lot of questions there.
Big parts of Hollywood are dead. Like I said before, Hollywood was always a lot of things. The thing that's going to be really curious is so Hollywood was always had a ton of nepotism in it. I'm 3rd generation in the business. When I started at one of the large prop houses, there were numerous, you'd hear on the intercom, they'd have to specify junior and senior all the time. And that's because Hollywood was from a below the line perspective, when you were on a crew, Hollywood was a very high trust, high competence environment. And even the new guys on a film set were given just a ridiculous amount of responsibility. Like I was 24 when my boss handed me a machine gun and said, "Here, go give this to Angelina Jolie." So the thing that's so worrisome is that isn't happening right now. So are they making movies and TV shows? Like, yeah, they're still being made. But everyone on the crew now has gray hair because you've lost the ecosystem that brought new blood in, trained them in the ethos, all of the unspoken rules. It takes 5 years to learn your way around a film set, believe it or not, especially an action film set. So are we just going to run? Look, you can think about the Alec Baldwin situation.
I was going to ask you about that.
I don't recommend hiring a 24-year-old armor. I was a 24-year-old armor handing out guns, but I was the most junior man on a crew with over 100 years of experience.
He pointed that gun at someone and fired it, though. And I don't care who you are or what set you're on. You're taught not to do that.
This can be an interesting discussion if you want to have it.
I kind of do. Is that like a normal thing? Because gun safety is like a big deal to me. It's
okay. So I, outside of work, am a very serious shooter. I have spent 20 years training with Scotty Reitz at ITTS. I pray at the high altar of firearm safety. Like I believe in Jeff Cooper's 4 rules, as religious, dogma. When you're on a gun range with real guns, doing real things. So let me propose to you I'm going to tell you a story and you tell me if I'm breaking the law. So tomorrow I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive to downtown LA and I'm going to take an elevator up to the top of a skyscraper. And I'm going to douse a human being in flammable material and I'm going to light them on fire. and then I'm going to grab them by the collar and I'm going to throw them over the edge of that building. Does that sound like a crime?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds awful.
Okay, right?
I mean,
It sounds
it sounds terrible.
right. So it sounds a
Someone's
lot
having
like
a bad day.
right. It sounds like premeditated murder, right?
Yeah.
Unless I tell you that there's a camera rolling, the guy doused in material is a stuntman, and at the bottom of the building is a giant airbag with a bunch of people with fire extinguishers ready to put them out.
Yeah.
If I told you that I was going to get into a car and drive it at 100 miles an hour down through the streets of Los Angeles, you would say that's, reckless felony driving. Except that we have a filming permit, the road is blocked off, and there's a camera car that's chasing them around. Now you're just doing a car chase.
Right.
You take a real pistol.
Acceptable menacing is what they call that.
Right. It's right. Okay. So exactly. Film, as a filmmaker, you are a professional pretender, and
there's a lot of them. I mean, look. Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
So
there's a lot of professional pretenders in politics too.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a growth business. So here's an interesting philosophical question, right? You have a lot of real gun world experience. So you get hired to be Clint Eastwood's armor on a show. And in the script, it says he pulls out his 1911. We see him load it, and he puts the barrel in his mouth. That's what's scripted. You are violating all 4 of Jeff Cooper's rules when you do that.
Right.
The question is, are you... And by the way, like there are 80 internal film industry rules for how you do that safely.
Yeah.
And so if you phrase the Alec Baldwin situation and just, I feel like I need to say this, no one yet knows that whole story.
No.
Because Baldwin's trial got kicked on a technicality, which it probably should have. We were all anxiously awaiting the discovery of Baldwin's trial to find out what really, really happened. But if you describe it as, well, he took a gun, he pointed at someone, he pulled the trigger, there was a live round in there, and that person was killed, is that a gun safety issue, or is that a workplace negligence issue? And I have to argue that it's a workplace negligence issue because we're not on a gun range. There should be an entire suite of rules and procedures and checks so that you can do that exactly what he did safely. Because that gun is always pointed somewhere, at a camera lens, at an operator, at another actor. Now, when we're doing a blank firing scene with choreography, do we manage all of those angles? Yes, absolutely. But if the director of photography, Baldwin's sitting there, let me try to see if I can do this. Baldwin's sitting there trying to, the director of photography says, gun up, gun up, gun up. Okay. And that's the shot they're looking for. He's doing exactly what his director is telling him to do. And the problem is that there was a live round in that gun, and everything is downstream of that. And
it was a live ball round.
Yes. Yeah. As I understand it, it was a literal no, in the early days, we were all worried that it was a repeat of the Brandon Lee incident where a slug had gotten lodged in a barrel and then been propelled by a blank. The Rush shooting does not seem to be that. It seems to be a real life, no kidding live round. And then you can play the game of how did it get there? Who was responsible for it? Who didn't do the appropriate checks? To bring up COVID, this was filmed during the COVID era, and the armor, as I understand it, was actually kicked off of the set because they had personnel space considerations. And so the first AD, who is the person in charge of on-set safety, he picked that gun up off of the table or the decker, handed it to Alec Baldwin, and declared it clear. And he never faced anything. He went state's evidence and never faced any repercussions as far as I know. And to my mind, like if I was the armor on that show and I looked and I saw a first AD pick up one of my guns and hand it to an actor, I would have done to him what you did to that Antifa guy.
Yeah, I mean, look,
when you're a 24-year-old girl, you may not have that option available to you.
So I could be at the store, go into the cabinet, take a gun off the wall. I check it, make sure that it's empty. I pull the slide out, make sure there's no rounds in it, put it back in, and then hand it off.
Yep.
Right? It doesn't matter if I assume that gun is on the wall, that it is a safe gun. It doesn't. It makes no difference
never.
To me, right?
None whatsoever. You are a human being made out of nerves and muscle, and you are not infallible, right?
In that way, I don't make that mistake. I don't.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's and by the way, there's two people. Not only the person that was responsible for their armory, not even that person is responsible in some degree. So is Alec. I mean, he's a professional. He's been on sets before. He's done these wild shoots before.
True. Right? And the way that I like to describe it is that if there's $1 of blame, I think that Baldwin is like a couple of pennies.
Yeah, probably.
He could have done something. Like what I would have wanted is I would have wanted my actor, you develop relationship with actors partially for safety reasons. I would want Alec Baldwin to say, when the AD handed him that gun or tried to, I don't take a gun from you. I only take a gun from my armor. That's what I would have wanted him to say. And now, part of the problem on a film set is that a film set is this really weird balance of art and science/tech. You have the camera is this highly technical thing with a whole crew of people keeping it running, a whole group of people making the lights work, etc. Everyone's doing these technical jobs. But then when you yell action, it's an art project. And the actor, like I've worked with actors who are basically in character the entire time. And I didn't know that Hugh Laurie was British for an entire year. Because he was in House's character the entire time.
Dude,
so
he's awesome, by the way.
He's awesome. Love him to death. Just that was such a hard show, and he could have been miserable, and he wasn't. The show is called House. He's in almost every scene. The man worked like 16-hour days for 9 months straight. It was really impressive. But it was Baldwin in the midst of some very emotional, heavy prep for the scene he's about to be in. And it's like he's playing the guy whose daughter just died, and then he needs to break character, look at the gun, be a responsible human being, and then get back in character. Like, that's actually a hard ask.
Okay.
And so
that's a new perspective.
It's my job as an armorer to kind of like manage the guy who's trying to deliver the Academy winning performance with all of the technical stuff that's behind it.
I don't think a Baldwin's ever won an Academy Award for anything. They're not that great actors. I mean, let's be honest.
Fair, absolutely fair.
How they stayed around in Hollywood for that long is
fair enough.
Donnie, are you on socials? Are you doing anything else? Or are you just what are you doing? What's the?
I'm not. My entire career, if I saw a camera lens, I ran behind it, and I kept a very low profile. Driving around with the streets of LA with machine guns. Kind of never ever. None of us ever had any social ever until probably like 2018, 19. So yeah, I don't.
All right. Well, how'd you meet Tommy?
Tommy did a podcast with E.M. Burlingame.
Oh, I love E.M. He's awesome.
E.M.'s an awesome guy. Yeah, so E.M. and I are actually working on a project right now, around some storytelling ideas. And so after that podcast, I sent Tommy an email it's got some questions about some of EM's ideas, and I asked Tommy to put me and EM in touch. And Tommy's response was, "Hey, do you want to be on a podcast with EM and I?" And so I said, "Sure." So we've done a few podcasts together here and there, and I think fingers crossed that's what's next for me is a new medium of storytelling based around some of EM's work. Trying to get those messages out.
I was approached 3 months ago to write a book, and I said no. And they're like, "Joe, you need to write a book." And I was like, "Nope." Like, "Joe, you need to write a book." And then 2 weeks ago, someone came to me and said, "Joe, you need to write a book." So now I've been told that I need to write a book. So I think I'd rather have a docu-series. Something that people can see, not just read.
Yeah. It's
I'm staring at 5 cameras right now, by the way. There's like 5 cameras in the studio and a bunch of lights. So, which is not my calling, by the way. My calling was tech. My calling was people. My calling was giving back. My calling was playing football with gang members. My calling was, helping the poorest among us, never forgetting where I came from. My calling is completely different than where I find myself in right now, right? And so it's interesting. You say, what's next for you? And I look at, as I do this podcast, thinking to myself, I do this every day for 2 hours. 5 days a week, I do this for 2 hours. I go do all my normal work. I do this for 2 hours. I've got a great support staff. I got Damon, I got Patrick, I got Lynn, I got Jared. I got these guys that help support. And when I can't be here, they're here. But I go, it's too important of a job right now because most people are just retarded. So I got to do this right now. But I keep thinking, what's next? What's next?
We are living in a period of chaos. It's a liminal time. We grew up in an era where the game was different, where things made more sense, where people seemed to be
real,
more competent and and this is, what I don't know if you're familiar with the fourth turning idea, but we're in the midst of one. It sure seems. Are you familiar with the Knafian framework? You ever heard of that? Yeah. And so when you're in a chaotic zone, there are no experts. There are no best practices. There's only probing the system for what, and seeing what happens and jumping on it. And for I think that's kind of what Donald Trump is that he is a prober of systems. He's not afraid to say, the most unpresidential thing you could imagine. But I think that he's like crazy like a fox, because what he's really doing is mapping out a system that is unmappable.
Yeah. He's trying to basically, he'll walk by and kick over a cup knowing that the cup that he kicked over is going to show you a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And nobody without big brass cojones. I mean, I'm talking like the ones that you used to use as rockers when we were kids, knockers. Nobody that does not have knockers that big could do what he did and in the middle of the night go into a foreign country, wake a guy up with his wife and say, and by the way, take out 40 plus, mercenaries. Just as if they were sitting down to have dinner. Fly them all the way back to the U.S. and then be like, now you're going on trial. The guy is he's just different. He's just built different.
And do a Roman triumph with him in the back of a van through the streets of New York. Right? It's a fascinating timeline.
I do believe that God is in control of things, and I think that we have to be very mindful over what's next. Like this is a very serious time where we have to lean into things that are not of our own understanding. We have to follow the path. It's kind of like that fourth turning, right? What do we go from here? What is this bringing us to the cliff of? Because something is on the cliff.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah. There's none of us were alive during the last spring, right, or the last winter for that matter. And right now we're in the end of a winter of a cycle. And we don't know what sprouts are going to shoot in spring. We don't know, when people read that Fourth Turning book, I don't think that they really appreciate the size and the scope of the change, right? Like a completely different group of people are in charge. A whole new generation is in charge. That generation believes fundamentally different things. They're going to my dad was a baby boomer and grew up with his music. And he didn't grow up with his parents' music, right? Like baby boomers didn't listen to big band music, but we grew up listening to baby boomer music, the cultural dominance of the baby boomers. And, you think about how many Rolling Stone songs you've seen in movies, right? It's like it's this sea that we've been swimming in our entire lives. And I don't think any of us are ready for the moment that stops, because it's going to be a completely different world. And we're going to get there. It's happening as we speak.
Yeah.
And one day, 5 years from now, you'll just go, I haven't heard the Stones or Zeppelin on the radio or in a commercial in 2 or 3 years. It'll just be gone. And with it, that entire worldview. So
remember, that's what happened to the 20s. The roaring 20s survived almost into the 50s. Right, yeah. So that music was around for a long time, right? And it didn't mature. And now we have this Led Zeppelin, Judas Priest. I mean, they get on stage now, by the way, and you're like this, please don't. You're 90. You're like, 90 years old screaming on stage. Just retire. It's like the judge in New York, 92 years old. He's out there saying, order in a cart. What'd you say, Sonny? Oh yeah, we got Maduro in front of us. Okay. I mean, he thinks it's like ice cream time.
That's that generation, right? I think it's the nomad generation. They really believe that they found all the answers to life, and strangely enough, they're holding on to it with their fingernails as time is dragging them out the door.
That's what the devil does, by the way. Just so we're clear. The devil holds on until the very end, right? Mm. And so we got to be careful of what they gave up and what they allowed us to go through. And then that's why I talk about stealing of elections and how important it is for us to regain ground, because society wants peace. I've never been to a place in any country where people don't want peace. They don't want conflict. And if what I'm saying is not true, then it wouldn't be a small group of people that are out there fighting, engaged in this conflict. It'd be lots of people. It'd be millions of people. But people don't want conflict. Ultimately, everyone wants peace.
No, it's that percentage of the population that EM would call resentfuls, right? It's for, this is all just deep-rooted psychological stuff, childhood trauma. We're all just kids in adult suits, with some of the same programming, and it's our job, our hope is to overcome that, to become more than that. But some people don't.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, there's plenty of 75-year-old baby boomers who are basically 25 on the inside. And it's not good.
Yeah, that's not me, brother. I just, Donnie, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll have you on again. We can talk about all sorts of stuff. Like Alec
Absolutely,
Baldwin.
Man. Had a great time.
All right,
and his pending Academy Award
that you'll never get. I'm glad that we're on the same page for that, for sure.
Well, man, it was great talking to you.
All right, God bless you, brother.
See you later.
Yeah, so that was a fun conversation. He's a good guy, and I didn't understand the dynamics between Hollywood, but I mean, if you look at it, it kind of makes sense. You have the left, which is at the top. It's kind of that trickling down. They're the ones that have massive problems. You probably have some pretty good actors, but they pretend for a living. And then you have the people that are in the trenches that represent most of America, right? They're getting the work done. So pretty fascinating. I skipped past a bunch of stuff when we started the show, and I've been kind of watching what people are saying, and I've been. It's not about me, right? It's not about me. It's not even about you. It's about, how do we get to a place where we can have barbecues again? I mean, just be able to go watch your friend's kid's high school football game or a wrestling match, or fly somewhere and have conversations where the first thing that comes up is not politics. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? And it wouldn't be nice to just rely on the people in positions of power and authority that when things go awry, they go back to the community and they ask those people in the community for what they need. Like, what do you need? Now, it used to be that we had PTOs, PTAs, and parents. You know, moms are a little crazy, but, you know, you have to admit that if we didn't have crazy women, we wouldn't be fighting this fight. Most of us men would have been like, yeah, I don't really, I got to go to work, right? Because that's what they told us. It's like, go to work. Your job is to create a living so that your family can flourish. And men, we're just lonely creatures. It's not the way it was designed, by the way. It used to be that we stood together. We hunters and gatherers. Gatherers were, you know, you bring home the bacon, you throw it out there, and the missus kind of cooks the bacon, goes in the kitchen. And that sounds pretty sexist, except for that's how it's supposed to be. There's a certain part of society that they've just turned on their head. They've turned it into this idea that, you know, that, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it has been, but that's because you're a misogynist. Or, you know, I'm for feminism. And then who decided that? No, nobody even asks that question. And then you have this crazy group of people that talks quite often about the fact that there's no God. And then someone inside the schools decided it was a good idea to give Satan's Club a look at the door, because they're like, oh, well, we can't, there's no sort of religious, person, you got religious freedom. And I'm thinking, except for if it's evil, it doesn't get a seat at the table. But somebody said, okay, hey, you know what, we want to give evil a seat at the table because the devil should have an equal opportunity. You should have the devil be able to get to your kids the same way that God can get to your kids. And oh, by the way, we're having Satan's Club, but we're going to draw pictures about cutting off penises. And we're not going to think that that's going to turn into anything that's going to put a pride flag on the wall and to take the American flag and throw it out the door. We're not thinking that's going to happen. But we did. We actually said this is what's going to happen. And we talked about this thing where you have pro-choice and pro-life, and I could talk about all these different things in society, but see, society right-sides all of that if you don't make it so that everyone is poor at a different level. And everyone is trapped in a net, and slavery doesn't become the way of the government. Now, I think that what I'm saying is absolutely true. 56 cents on every dollar goes to the government. 56 cents. That makes you less than half of a person. So of course your wife has to work. Of course you might have to work a second job or do some little thing on the side. Of course that has to happen. Why? Because there's not enough meat on the bone for you to work one job and actually bring home the bacon for mama. And so then as a man, you judge yourself under that. And keep in mind, under all this stuff, you still have your kids going to school being taught with this run through the institutions with Marxism and communism. But let's be honest. If we're being honest, capitalism hasn't really done us much good either because we don't stick to it. Now it's crony capitalism. It's if you are my brother or sister, I'll give you an opportunity. And by the way, let's have government turn into organized crime, where the IRS can send you a notice and say you owe $25,000. And you're like, I paid all my taxes. And they're like, prove it. But it really was just because you were 2 days late. And they're like, yeah, so 2 days late, and it took us 3 years to figure it out. So 3 years and 2 days, you have to pay this interest. It's actually $30, but you have to pay $25,000. That's real. Like what I said, some of you have experienced. And it's, there's a thing that happens when you start to realize that you're not in control. And today's J6. And there is a whole group of people that all they're talking about is stolen elections. If you're not on X, you can't see it, because if you go to CNN or if you go to Fox News or on these other places, nobody's talking about certain things. They're talking about how all these people are protesting on the streets, and we talked yesterday about how the fact that these protesters were They were just hired henchmen. They didn't even know why they were there. And so we uncovered an NGO organization that goes out there and finds people like, can you just go out there and stand and hold a sign? We're going to pay you a couple, $400 or $500. Well, tomorrow we're going to do a story that I did back in 2022. A story, by the way, with factual data that I sent to Washington, to congressmen, in 2022. I talked a little bit about this. His name is Raul. I don't know why. Hold on a second. I need to take this for a second. Hello? I'm on the podcast.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
Okay, love you too. Sorry. That's my daughter. And here's what you know about me. If one of my family members calls me, I'm going to answer the phone. First time I've had to do that. Okay. So we're going to do a story on Raul. Do we want to do it? Patrick, do we want to give him a taste of this from this morning? Well, forget the video. Forget the video. What about the thing that he sent to the ambassador that shows that they knew? Do you have that? Do you want me to send it to you? You got to tell me if you want to do it, because I'm totally breaking the rules here. What do you think? Little taste? All right, let me see if I can find it real quick. A second. I gotta see if I can get to the top of it. You're talking about hundreds of pages. Let me see if I can. That's from 2021. This is from, okay. Take me to a quick commercial break. Hey, I'll be right back. We'll do a commercial break. We come back. I'll get you a bunch of stuff so I can tell you that the ambassador of Romania knew about this information. And the Congress had this information. And as we picked up Maduro, I'm going to peel back the onion. I think this, by the way, is why people are like, how did you get this information? And how, this is really weird. Like, you shouldn't know about this stuff. I talked a little bit about Raul before. Raul Coulter, who's now in prison in Romania, still right now, as a result of this. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns? We have all the guns. We got small guns, we got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers! Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter. It's hot.
All right. So let me tell you about Raul. I met Raul in February of 2022. I've been communicating with him and other people, and I worked in conjunction with some other people, including some of the researchers that we've been talking about here recently in this special with B. Now, this guy, Raul, worked for IT Fox IT, which is a CIA front overseas. And when I first took this to Washington, they had to check on whether or not Fox IT was a real organization that was basically connected to the CIA. And they came back and said, okay, how did you get that? How did you know about that? And I was like, look, I have a guy that literally wants me to meet with him over in Romania. And so the deal was set, and I called Mike Lindell. Actually, I called Kurt Olson and Mike Lindell because I went to go get a ticket, plane ticket, and they wouldn't let me book a flight for myself. They're like, no, you can't leave the country. And so at the time, I didn't really know much about Mike. We're doing some stuff, but I called Kurt. I was helping him out because we had the symposium in 2021 and 2022. I was, we kind of weren't talking that much in early 2022. We didn't talk till the second symposium, and then I was invited to that. And that's when Mike and I started talking again, and then just, reducing costs for him. By the way, everyone along the line who's hated on me has been because I've done stuff like for Mike, he spent $800,000 on infrastructure, and we cut it by 78%, literally overnight. So they all hated me. I mean, this is the Brandon Houses of the world and his buddy Johnson guy. They hated me because I'm like, you guys are ripping him off. You're ripping off Mike. And I think Mike would have had less money and not needed any of my money or my friends' money if he wouldn't have been ripped off by everyone and if he wasn't foolish enough to be ripped off. But then again, you don't rip other people off after you've been ripped off. That's just not the way it works. But in 2022, I couldn't get out of the country. And I had someone that worked in intelligence and research that was living overseas. And so he was the one guy that I was talking to who was going to pick me up. We were going to drive in from Italy and go into Romania. Okay, so we had it all set. Everything was done. I sent some money over to get Raul so he could travel to a certain place, and he was under tight security. Now, from there, I couldn't get out of the country. So I sent $5,000 to this person overseas and said, look, I need you to go visit with him and just put him on video and we'll have the conversation. And so he did. He got video, and I was like, listen. So I told Raul, you have to have all this information. You have to give me stuff. And he goes, Joe, let me explain to you what's happening. This fraud, by the way, this ties into USAID. It ties into all the financial fraud that was happening. And matter of fact, I think you could probably make an argument that this is really a direct result of a rogue CIA deal that allowed for people of interest in the United States to launder cash all over the place, right? So in order to launder cash, in order to do what they did at things like Act Blue, which is going to be fascinating, to do things like Act Blue, you have to have people's social security numbers and people that you could use. So our rule provided me with thousands of names, social security numbers, full information that he got from the system overseas inside of Fox IT that was used to launder money and to create IDs and identities that then could be used in the United States in order to vote fraudulently. Are you getting me on this? Okay. Let's put up the first page and we walk through this real quick. By the way, I'm going to do a whole thing on this. You're going to watch a video tomorrow. So stay tuned tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going to want to see all of this. So here's the deal. So let me read this to you. This is translated, by the way. Jeez, let's see if I can find it. I can't be that silly that I can't find it. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Give me 1 second. That's Totenberg. That's not it. That's it. Okay. That's that one. Sorry, I need to be able to read it from here, from my deal, so just give me 1 second. Oh, this one up here. Got it. All right, so let me read this to you. This was written to the ambassador of Romania, and this was before the election in 2020. Now, as I go through some of these documents, I'm going to show you something which is going to be disturbing. This is the reason why I have no respect for the FBI, because instead of actually going to Raul and saying, okay, you have this information of fraud, let's get to the bottom of it, what do you think the FBI did? Well, you're about to find out. So let's read this to you for a minute. This is from Raul. I am Colto Raul Nicolay, external risk analyst and friend of FBI for over 10 years, and democracy supporter. I intend to inform you about the reasons behind USA election results in 2016 with cybercrime implications. The benefit of this data leak went to Russia and Chinese institutions also through treason and corruption of Romanian Secret Services, SRI, and Romanian magistrate employees. I tried to prevent these leaks 4 years ago, but information went to the wrong hands. Also based on these data leaks, there are frauds of over $120 billion in the last 8 to 10 years against USA citizens. I consider prioritize zero for you and the U.S. authorities to solve this matter in order to prevent also military and government data leaks to be sold again by the same group of traders in Romania in the following period. Because data leaks affect more than 50 million U.S. citizens and is real crush, this information can help you maintain people trust in democracy as long as data is still used now for frauds. I'm waiting for your confirmation for receiving this information, and I'm at your disposal for further discussions about this highly important matter. I want you to be a corrupted group you have from Romania's side able to do anything to hide this case of USA national security. In case you do not receive this confirmation within 2 days, I will consider that you did not receive it, and I'll be forced to send it to the public. You also have 4 papers added to the note to prove you about the case that I am talking about. Please consider all the information I will put at your disposal extremely important for the next election that will take place in USA in 2020. Okay? Best, Raul Coulter. Now, this was done on the 30th of April, 2018. It's interesting, isn't it? Now let's go to the next page. Let's skip by the next page real quick because that's going to be a person where it gives all the information. Just skip by it. Skip by it. Okay. And then let's go a little bit further past that. I'm going to get to a document. I'm going to not give you the information. This is all stuff we'll talk about later. Keep going. And keep going. Right here. Stop. And this is where the selling of the information. Now you're going to notice a couple of things. You have Colorado Springs, Intercept, Mexico, Honduras, Utah. These are all people in these different environments. They have the relationship with the Secretary of State, Todd with a cell number. We have all, so this is all the information that we turned over, right? All of it. Sonia Ramirez works for the Secretary of State from Utah. So these are all people that I was able to verify as I go through the process that these are real people. These are real people that are committing fraud and creating opportunities. Now, you do remember that they had IDs that came through Mexico and all that stuff. Okay, next thing you're going to see. Keep going. Okay, let's pass that up. This is the espionage and fraud. Okay, 12th of July, 2019. Raul, I've got 2 guys from our Vienna office and 2 from our New York cyber unit coming out with me to meet. They want to overwhelm you with too many people, but all have a role and will assess you and your information. I see a number of ways we can work together, but want to stay focused on specifics. Bring what you have available to show, and I will discuss potential options. Now listen to this, but be prepared to be straight with us. The who, what, when, and where in totality is important for us to make good judgment. Just want you to be prepared so you aren't caught off guard. Now he says that he went to the embassy, and he's in the visitor's registration on July 16th, 2019. Now, that must have caused quite a problem, quite a stir, because the conversation that I had back, and I wish I knew who I was talking to. This is the bad part about 5 years of going through and it being a frenzy, right? And this is 2022, which is relatively fresh. So his name is Scott C., works for the FBI. All my words will be doubled by documents and samples. What I don't have, it will tell where it can be found. Exactly the point. Sounds fair? Yes. Okay, now listen to this. Yes, however, may I ask you to forget about the past and focus on the future? This is FBI. Focus on the future. How can we work together on new jobs, etc.? We have authority and you have expertise. We are heavily focused in the dark net and marketplace intrusion crimes, etc. How can you be our eyes, ears, at times our deployed asset, all financially covered in the end? Makes sense? It does, and we will discuss everything on site. I will take it in consideration. And then he goes, on my way, July 16th, 2019. Are you driving? Are you taxi? And he sends him a map. Taxi is one point, then I will walk to be sure about, and he stopped. This entrance, okay, ping when you are close. I'll see you there. Okay, see you soon, here. Raul, thank you for today. I know it was a lot of talking for you and hard in the second language. Thank you for the hard work. Just realized didn't take the piece of paper you were writing on and wanted to check some of the names. Can you photograph and send to me? I didn't took it. Oh, let me see if Mike has it. Where is that? Out of the city. And I think that's when he just left. Linking in with you with Mike from New York shortly. Okay. Confirm we did not grab the piece of paper you were writing on. Can't believe we left that as it has some good info for us to check. Are you able to get any time soon? Okay. This is with one guy that works for the FBI. His name's Scott C. Now, you would say, Joe, do you have the information on Scott C? And the answer is yes. Now, I'm turning this over to a couple of other people, but this information I was told at some point, and look, here's what happened in 2022. You have all this other stuff that's happening. This is a guy over in Romania. So then he reaches out after the election of 2020. And he says, greetings, Mr. Ambassador. Welcome to Romania. My name is Raul Nicolae Coulter, a former internal risk analyst in the field of cybersecurity and bank cybersecurity. I'm making the documents available to you and inform you of the following. I'm a witness and whistleblower in more than 10 domestic and international cases in favor of the American people. He asked for an urgent meeting. This was on 1/3 of 2021. This is before President Trump, before J6. This is in 2021. He gave him his personal cell number, his trusted local contact, his international contact. And they went through and gave up the information related to emails from the FBI Washington field office to prove that he was having conversations with the FBI. From there, he brought in proof of documentation related to these things. And this is in 2022. Now, let me just explain something to you about what you're about to see. Actually, I'm not going to show it to you yet because I'm going to bring someone else in to go through a video that was an hour and 36 minutes. We brought it down to about 50 minutes. But it's Raul speaking. Now, I did this back in 2022. I put this out publicly. I didn't realize that all the stuff that happened to me back then could have been tied back to this. But as I was sitting there having a conversation with one of the researchers, he said, Joe, this would be the perfect time to talk about Raul because the information they're talking about as far as fraudulent people that are voting and, fraudulent, voters in the elections, he goes, this is probably where it came from. I will tell you that the information that we have inside of this document has specifically information related to California, LA County, San Bernardino, Colorado Central, Colorado DPS, Colorado East, Colorado West, Louisiana, Maricopa, Mesa, Maricopa County, Arizona, and North Central Texas and Tucson, Arizona. And as you go through and see all the information they were able to collect, he gave me information on a guy named Jose Alvarado, which we'll talk about him in a little bit as well. He gives us wire instructions for Citibank that he took from Fox IT for a direct wire. And then he started giving us all the FBI open ports and email addresses for the FBI officials. So how would he have that? And he was working with the CIA inside of Fox IT, which is a known spot for the CIA. And so this is why I get upset about Dan Bongino saying that you just make it up and you don't, nobody looked into this in 2018. They looked into it in 2021. It took them handing it over to me and saying, Joe, we think we can trust you. So then I go and I hand that information off to, I think it was Jim Jordan's office. I'm pretty sure it was. I need to go back and check. To hand this stuff off, and then crickets. And because of what was happening in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, and attacking President Trump and going through lawsuits, and I mean, it just was a never-ending, just swirling, flying all over the country, trying to figure stuff out. There's been more than enough sacrifice by people that, frankly, didn't want a seat at the table and didn't ask for it, me included. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that tomorrow. That's all we want to talk about today, right? With this? Yes? Okay. Now we can go back to just the regular stuff and just talk about the regular stuff, shall we? Can we talk about the regular stuff? It all ties back to the election fraud. Every bit of it ties back to the election fraud. Every bit of it ties back to what we're dealing with as a country. Actually, yeah, there it is. But let's talk about what I said before, and this is kind of telling. The entire country is talking about election fraud. Venezuela, the impending indictments and arrests, Fox News, CNN, MS Now News, I guess what it's called now, OAN, Newsmax, all remaining silent. It's true, if you want the news, you will have to go to the Elon Musk platform X and open an account on Truth Social to follow 47. I even went to Blue Sky because I had to go check it and see if they were talking about election fraud, and guess what? They were. Mainstream media is dead. And it is a disappointment that the organization I have supported, OAN, is right in the middle of the malfeasance and willful ill-informing the public at a time that, most importantly, that people know what is going on. Without Elon, there would be no hope, and our nation would be DOA, dead on arrival. But the rod of the apparatus all the way through, and who controls what the public knows, still at the hand of bad, bad people, it appears. So this isn't, I want to just kind of address what Dan Bongino says. This isn't a naysaying. It's not that you can't have people inside your organization that are bad. It's that you promote the bad and you basically turn your back on the good. And then you let the Mean Girls Club go after him while you sat in the FBI. And then you went after him because he was pissed that you basically sacrificed him for nothing. You basically make him a useful idiot. And here's what President Trump did. He put this video out. He went on a tear, put out 50 different videos. Let's go ahead and play it.
Awarded to Biden, and Jorgensen's totals being awarded to Trump.
After gaining access to a forensic image of the Dominion election management system in Mesa County, Colorado, IT experts demonstrate how easy it is to switch tens of thousands of votes from Trump to Biden in seconds by simply changing the index number next to each candidate's name.
This is a backdoor utility called SQL Server Management Studio that is actually installed on the image of the voting system.
So is it certified?
It is not on the list of certified software. What I'm going to do first, I'm just going to pull up the presidential results in Mesa County for that election. And here they are. You can see Biden has 31,000, Trump has 56,000. Okay, so I'm going to come up here now, and I'm going to make a quick change. Change that.
You change that to a 2.
Yep. I'm changing Trump to a 1.
Okay.
And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to rerun the report. And there you go. Biden, 56,000, Trump, 31,000. So I just flipped the results of the election using a tool that's actually built in to the voting system. And what I did is not even logged. There's no trace of what I just did now. For some reason, the logging of activities by a user that has the password are not retained.
In Pennsylvania on live TV, Trump had 1,690,589 votes, while Biden had 1,252,537 votes. The time was approximately 11:08 Eastern Standard Time. The next interval report shows Trump's votes decreasing to 1,670,631, and Biden's votes increasing to 1,272,495. The time is approximately 11:09 p.m. Live on CNN, exactly 19,958 votes were switched from Trump to Biden. This means Trump lost 39,000.
So that was David Clements, Mark Cook, and myself. We went through that before. So how do you get to a place where all of these outlets aren't talking about the election fraud? How do you get to that place? And then here's a post from Emerald Robinson. And this is why I keep putting out there that there will be people arrested. Let's go ahead and put it up. Yes, there are secret indictments. Yes, there are secret grand juries. Yes, there are secret task forces. But I lived under surveillance through the Biden regime for 4 years, so I won't relax until the traitors are hanged. Sound familiar? Go ahead, take it down. I think that President Trump has no appetite for these people to survive. I think after 4 years of them coming after his family and they came after every part of his family. So I had to send a note to someone and say, I'm sorry. I should have been patient. So I'm not without fault for saying that, hey, we're at the end of it, we're gonna die. I wish I would have done it differently. I wish I would have been less mad, less angry. I wish I would have listened to the terms that Kyle said, which is, those that anger you own you. But sometimes when you get in the battle, that's what happens. I want to remind you of some things that we've forgotten about, you haven't seen in a little bit. This is Joe Biden from 2020. This is just before the election. Play it.
We have put together, and you guys did it for our administration, the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Largest voter fraud in history of politics. So you said the quiet part out loud. And here's a cut from David Clements. Let's play it.
We shouldn't have to listen to a bunch of election deniers. Look, here's a story about this professor. The trusted Washington Post says he spreads myths. He's a myth spreader right here in print, in the news. Since when do we not trust the news?
Heinrich or Eric, whatever your name is, I'm glad you wanted to discuss my credibility, because there's a witness that overheard you during a meeting leading up to the 2020 election. His name is Joe Oltmann, a tech CEO and system architect expert.
Eric Coomer is the Director of Strategy and Security for Dominion Voting Systems. He is a shareholder. He does own the patents for adjudication. Now keep in mind, I had no idea that Dominion ran 50% of the vote of the American people. Now, I wasn't looking for Eric Coomer. I wasn't looking for Dominion. But God was. So then this kid came to me from Antifa, and I became the #1 target for Antifa. They hated me. But then the next time we had a meeting, he showed up and he's like, listen, he's like, well, I can get you on a call. All those guys that are journalists out there, they're actually not journalists, they're Antifa activists. That's how we got to the call, and him saying that, hey, don't worry about it, Trump's not gonna win, I made sure of it. That was in September of 2020, before the election. It seemed impossible. Like, how could someone be that evil? Right? He's got a Church of Satan, the Screaming Pope tattoo on his arm. He wrote a story about how he raped, abused his wife at the time, and then published it with the email address. He posted the Antifa manifesto on his Facebook page. He posted things like that were anti-police, anti-Trump, anti-American rhetoric, put up stuff like F the USA, kill pigs. This guy is responsible for 50% of the vote of the American people.
I don't have to listen to this garbage.
So you had a little accident down there, huh?
No.
Okay, there are tons of witnesses down there described you to a T. So you can either be honest about it or you can stick to your story.
Not sure what you're asking about. I've been under a lot of stress. I hit the building and I panicked. Okay.
I hit the building and I panicked. 5 years. Now, I used to think that, 'cause I started off thinking that I just can't, maybe it's not the same Eric, you know, because good people want to go back and look at things, and then I had people tell me, well, Joe, you have to give yourself an out, and I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? These are lawyers that say that to me, and then I go through and I read his doctorate dissertation. I mean, he's wicked smart. And then I go through the timeline and I start researching other elections. And then all the evidence comes out for Dominion. And then I do the research on Dominion. I did the research on Dominion, so I knew that they were fraudulent. And then the death threat, I mean, just so you put it all together and it's just, okay, he's the linchpin. And I ran all the algos, and then they locked down the it was just the weirdest part. They locked down the AI, so I had to build another AI platform that allowed for me to go through and readjust, which I should do that too sometime in the next couple of weeks, take his dissertation, put in cast vote records, and say, was this dissertation, was the math here, could it be used in order to steal elections? Could that math be used to steal elections? And it came back yes, and I was like, okay, build me a model and tell me how close these cast vote records are to the dissertation if you were to change the math and make the math correlate to controllers inside the computer. And it said at 0.996, 0.99. I was like, eureka! So I ran it again, did it again. Then I did it again. Then I got more cast vote records. And then I got cast vote records that I knew weren't fraudulent and said, it's like 0.3 or 0.2. I can't remember what the number was. So I write it down, I sent it to my lawyer, and I was like, eureka, we got him. But this is before we had everything. So imagine going through 5 years of this, and I'm not the only one. Patrick Byrne went through it. You know, Matt DePerno went through it. Dr. Clements went through it. And we went through all this, by the way, with a lot of people on the side taking shots at us. And then we find ourselves fighting against people like Joe Vaughn, and so then you're trying to figure out the bottom of the barrel. Like, how do you get to the bottom of the barrel? But then all of the mainstream sites aren't even talking about it. Not at all. So then I just start going through more information, and they're like, Joe, just load it up. Just put lots of stuff out there. So I get to the stuff with Raul. I get to the stuff where we're talking about the interconnections between Dominion and Serbia and roaming networks and in Chicago, and then this trucking company deal that's a that's a Serbian trucking company that's all over the country, and how it ties back to the people that are inside the election systems. And it's scary that they're actually related. So it's real organized crime. And then we get to the bottom of the Somali daycares, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And then you see that the Michael Byrd, the one that shot Ashley Babbitt, has his own daycare deal that got a bunch of money from the government in Maryland, millions of dollars. And that was reported just today on the Gateway Pundit. And you don't know how anybody could be fighting against this, but then you look up and the mainstream media is not even talking about it. And then the influencers, they talk about it, and then they stop talking about it. And then someone reached out to me about a week and a half ago, which I can't tell you about yet. We're going to work on it, though. But I put up this post. Remember when the system for Dominion had an adjudication rate of 6 to 30%? Who do you think designed it? How are the writings of the code for various election components? How about the writings for the code for various election components? The reality is, Mr. President, we know who wanted to overthrow the government and did so in 2020. We also clearly know who was responsible for making it possible and those who wanted it to have the tools to do it. And so we have this little post that I pulled as I'm going through all the information because I have to turn over a bunch of stuff for interrogatories. And then I had to go back and listen to Eric Coomer's dissertation. He's like, I didn't write an ounce of code. Well, how is that possible? Because you wrote in the curling deal that you testified that you wrote the code for the election. So which one is it? And then I went further and I was like, okay, he's the director of strategy and security. So why is he doing media calls? Why is he selling the product? And what about the emails out of Washington, D.C. that Darleaf has? And why were they sealed by a federal judge in Washington, D.C., which were the emails in the Dominion v. Byrne? And why did Dominion want to just drop the case completely when they sold it off to the GOP guy? And why is it people think that just because he says that he's a Republican that he is? I want to remind you that Kerry Lake, the person that offered tens of millions of dollars in bribes not to run for office, was the GOP chair of Arizona. That these people are literally wicked, wicked people that are a part of the political apparatus, but they're no different. They're just evil people. Now, this happened before, but I want to bring it back up again. President Trump signed an order revoking Chris Krebs' security clearance and directed Pam Bondi to investigate him for the role in the overthrowing the U.S. government on November 3rd, 2020. So let me tell you something else about Eric Coomer and John Poulos. Because now that I have the emails, the text messages, and I was able to run the text messages through for authentication. I got bigger problems with the text message they have with John Poulos, which is the CEO of Dominion. Because guess who was on the call on November 2nd, 2020 with CISA and Chris Krebs? You got it, Eric Coomer. So why would Eric Coomer from Dominion Voting System, the head of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems, be on a call with Chris Krebs and CISA? Why would he be cozy with an entire organization? And why in the world would we have outsourced, non-transparent elections run by privatized groups and companies so they don't have to actually submit to any sort of FOIA requests, and then hide behind the idea that their computer system is intellectual property and therefore you can't take a look at it? It doesn't even make sense. You have crimes that are being committed all over the country. You have a computer system that was by the Venezuelans. They had a Venezuelan whistleblower who said the system is designed to crash. It's designed to have problems. And how the hell did I predict the outcome of the Senate race in 2021 for Georgia, for the two races that went to Democrats, which I told them that's what's going to happen. Based on what happened before, this is what they're going to do in Georgia. And they did. And they got a majority, and they passed a bunch of stuff like they did for the previous 20 years in multiple states across the entire U.S. They stole elections from the bottom all the way up. And then I said, let's go back and look at the WikiLeaks cables. What if I told you, here's one, let's put this one up, if we would, please. Smartmatic acquired the U.S. voting system company Sequoia Voting Systems on March 8th, 2005. Mugica reported, all U.S. election machinery is assembled in New York, he said. Mugica noted that while the U.S. operations were important, more than half of their sales were outside the Venezuela and the United States. The other Smartmatic company was based in Bridgetown, Barbados, where Magica said the international sales operation was located. Most of the manufacture for their electoral and electronic machinery was done in China, with some components also done in Taiwan. Smartmatic also manufactures some items in Italy through the company Olivetti, which built the original Smartmatic machines for Venezuela. The research and development shop was still located in Caracas, So I said to look at that, and I wanted you to look at it a little closer. Let's put up the next post. Next post. No, post 7. Post 7, sorry. We'll skip up 6. Okay. So there was a post that was put up. And the post, go to the post if you want to scroll up to the post so I can see the post real quick. And I get really sensitive to information that is off 1 degree because I think that that actually creates a problem. So the SCIF, which has done amazing work, by the way, Smartmatic and Dominion voting machines have been accused of manipulating elections as far back as 2006 or earlier. Today we have the proof to end election fraud once and for all, not just in the US, but around the world. Every country must demand election integrity. This was just a couple days ago, right? So I had to say something about this, so I put out this post on top of it and then reshared it. I said Sequoia Voting Systems was the nexus, not Dominion. Dominion was the handoff. Eric Coomer was the chief architect of Sequoia. Eric Coomer said, don't worry about it, Trump's not going to win. I made effing sure of it. I was on that call. Coomer sued me. Coomer sued a lot of people. And the left and the traitors on the right defamed and slandered me. I was found credible and non-defamatory by a jury of the Mike Lindell trial, and we all know Coomer is still a free man for now. And the rotted judges of Colorado have lied, cheated, and broken procedure to steal what was never theirs to take. I still have a trial to attend to. My question will remain, how swift will justice come? When will they pay? That leads me to being called a deep state guy. That somewhere along the line, I was a deep state guy. That I don't know. Patrick, what would you call it? Deep state? My deep state? Are you sure? Put up this post. This is post C6. So let's look at this guy's post real quick, just so you guys can see it. And look, it's not that important, by the way, what he says. Oltmann is a deep state creation brought to life when needed to infiltrate the election integrity, election forensic audit ecosystem. He's here to get close, and then to cause trouble. There's no evidence of the call. I said, okay. So what did I write? Okay, liar. Keep lying, buddy. It's the leftists and you leftists wrapped in bacon. They admitted there was a call. They have an affidavit of someone on the call, but Pinky swear Coomer wasn't on it. Their witness, an Antifa member who was accused of sexually assaulting dozens of children. And then there's how I find Coomer. How did I find Coomer? Like, how did I find Coomer? How did I find Coomer? I mean, how? Nobody was looking at Dominion on November 6th. Nobody was looking at them at all. They were trying to figure out how they were stuffing more ballots through things. Go back and look at it. And I was up elk hunting, as I've said before. How did I find Coomer? The drug-addicted, self-proclaimed skinhead 3 days after the election, before it was called and before anyone was talking about the machines. And then there's the fact that Coomer was the chief architect of the Sequoia voting system a month after it was purchased by Smartmatic in 2005. The matching up of his algos on the cast vote records that showed fraud in the states tested. Not to mention, at the time, he was a heroin addict and right before was facing a significant time in jail for felonies that mysteriously disappeared. He could have done, he could not have passed, should have been passed, a background check to work at McDonald's. Yeah, I'm sure that is a coincidence. And then there's Coomer was in the Krebs Sisakal on 11/2/2020. I could go on, but soon liars will see. I put up with you've defamed me pricks for 5 years. You're a zero, but I do enjoy blowing you up as the lying piece of trash that you are. Next, simp. So this is my way of not getting angry, by the way, but just calling people out. Look, we all have an obligation to call lies lies. Your obligation right now, I'm going to give you a homework assignment, is to do this. Go out there, put it on all your socials that the elections are stolen. Why is Fox News? Why is CNN? Make sure you tag them on every social. Why are they hiding? And why are the people like Dan Bongino so concerned with talking about people that are talking shit about things that aren't getting done and not talking about elections? Why is he taking us over here to say, let's talk about people we think are black pillars? Nobody's a black pillar. If you believe in God, you can't be a black pillar. But you can say that if we don't actually stand up and do something, something can go drastically wrong. All right, let's pray. Thanks for coming on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. Thank you for supporting us all this time. We got a bunch of new sponsors for 2026. We'll call them partners. We're going to do some stuff on the gun side. I'm going to give away some guns and do some crazy stuff this year, so stay tuned. It's the first week of the first year of 2026, and President Trump has not disappointed us. I'm going to stop talking about what President Trump can do because I think he's doing it. And if he doesn't do it, I don't think it matters. But I am going to talk about all the other stuff that we should be working on, like how do we save our country and the state of Colorado, and how do we get rid of machines and mail-in ballots across the country? Now, I think it's coming, but I think the pressure that we have to put on everyone is that it needs to happen faster, because we're getting really close to the point where we're going to have to declare a national state of emergency in order to get to a place where we can get rid of these rotted machines, which is why I'm going to do the show on Raul specifically. So let's pray. Father God, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the last 5 years, even though I keep complaining about it. It's been tough. It's been difficult. But Father, I got to talk to Tina Peters today, and she read something to me about the fact that hardening resolve and being prepared for the tests that come ahead. And she was high in spirits, and she's doing a greater good behind the walls of that prison. And I pray, Father, this podcast that we do does reach the right people and help the right people. I pray that it gets us to a place where we can get to a place of accountability, and that bad people can be held accountable for their behavior. And although my mind takes me to a place of wanting absolute vengeance, I submit before you and say, I'm sorry, forgive me. I also know that I need to be able to bring these things before you. So we bring them before you now, and we just ask you, Father, to guide us in a direction where we can have courage and stay committed to restoration, restoring you to our community and to our country. I ask you, Father, to bless Tina Peters and to protect her. And for those people that are sick, Dave Bear, and the things that he's going through right now, I would ask that he be healed, Father. I ask these things humbly in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day. I'm off to do some crazy stuff with Patrick, who thinks that, I don't know what Patrick thinks. I turned his mind upside down when I showed him the Raul stuff. He's like, what world is this? This can't be real. Did you think that, Raul? I mean, Patrick? Yeah, what do you think? Are you at a place now where you're like, I thought these guys were crazy? What do you think happens next? And obey God. All right. God bless you. See you soon, brother. See you guys.
Rising from the fight for the forgotten and the free, exposing rigged machines, Coomer's lies, Dominion's deceit, pays a grand each day, shielding truth from corrupt halls, but he won't back down, standing tall through it all. Martin, Tina Peters break the chains that bind her tight, hand count votes and one day bring the fraud to light. No more mailing scams, no machines to steal the night, restore the people's voice, make Colorado right. Governor Oltmann, lead us voting true, badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away, shrink the bloated state, let the people have their say. It's our rally call, truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people, set our great state free. Help the single moms, bring back trade school strong, opportunity for youth, where the brave belong. Audit every NGO, ban the wolves that roam, reclaim our stolen land, bring the power home. Eric Coomer's fraud, Dominion's rigged design, expose the stolen votes, cross a dangerous line. No more victimhood, no chains on you and me. He's running for governor for real liberty. Smash the fraud machine, pardon heroes jailed for the have-nots, rising truth will never fail. One warrior defies the corrupt elite. Colorado reborn, strong on our feet. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away. Shrink the blow to stay, let the people have the say. Governor Oltmann, it's our rally call. Truth and freedom rising, watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud we'll be. One man for the people, set our great state free. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Governor Oltmann, freedom forever, Colorado rise. Governor up, Governor up, Governor up, Governor up, Governor up, Governor up. Rise up untamed, in the heart of the fire where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Tame nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever